So I'm Tom.
And I'm Marquita.
And we're destined to explore. And today we're getting ready to take off on our next epic adventure. And we're doing a couple modifications here. So we're going to install the Haloview BT7. That's a byte tango. I don't know, camera system, I guess we'll call this. This has got a monitor in it that you put in your truck with a rear view camera on it. And this little kit here has got some side marker lights and cameras that we're going to also install. We're going to do kind of a high-level install overview of this, and we'll give you our honest review of this. We're not under any obligation to provide a positive review. We're going to give you our honest observations on how we like this system.
So why'd they send it to us?
Well, it's because what we ordered and paid for.
Yeah.
All right, so we've opened up the package here, and we'll show you what we've got here. We've got, these are the side marker lights. The antennas came separate in the package. I've already mounted those on there. So we've got those, and we've got a mounting bracket here for the display unit, which is over here. We've got the power cord for the display unit, and then we've got this rear backup camera here, and then we've got we've got the mounting pad. This will go on the back. The camera is going to mount on this right here. There are a set of instructions here. Here's one for the display. These are basically identical manuals here for the rear camera light and the side marker lights, depending which ones you have. What I will tell you is this is not a great instruction manual. It doesn't explain a lot of the information about those, but we'll get into that as we go ahead and do the install here and talk about the different wires that are sticking out of all of these things and why and where you might use those. One other little caveat on our installation here is on our Alliance 310. On our control panel here, we have a camera switch here. And what this switch does is this powers the rear camera mount that's up on the back of the trailer. We'll show you that in a little bit here. So what I'm planning to do here is to use this camera switch to power not only the rear light or the rear camera, but also the side marker cameras. And the reason I want to use this to power all of those is because I want to be able to use the display actually inside the rig so I can see what's going on outside the rig if I want to do that. So I'm going to wire all the cameras to this switch instead of using the marker light wires on the front part. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we're in the back of the camper here, and we're going to put in the rear light, which I've got setting up here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to pop off this little access here. This is where my wires come out for the switch inside the camper. And we're just going to go ahead and pull these out of here. And those are pretty short, so what we're going to do is we're just going to strip those back. We're going to make our connection on these and then kind of stuff everything back together. So let's get that piece done, and then we'll mount the camera on the back here. If you didn't have wires in the back pre-wired for a backup camera, you could tap off of this and just use the running lights to turn them on and off. But since we've got this, obviously this is what we're going to do. So I've connected the wires here, the red to the one with the red line on it, and the black to the ground. I've cut this wire back quite a bit. This doesn't seem to want to fit in the back side here, so I think what we're going to do is shove that up inside here. Get it up inside there. So we're just going to wrap these ones up in here, get them tucked inside. Get everything there's that holes there. Make sure we're at level. Here. Put the first screw in here. Hopefully we can. Okay, let's check the level one more time here. Still good. One more screw. Don't want to over tighten those and strip out the holes. Alright, and that's the back camera. We'll probably have to come back here and adjust this a little bit to get the view right, but we should be good with that one.
What you doing?
So this is the fish tape. We just went from down in the basement, under the cabinet in the bathroom, and then we pulled this wire up here. And this is what we're going to use the power of the cameras on the front of the rig. This will also tie into the same switch that turns the cameras on the back.
So how do you know where it goes?
Well, there's a camera switch here, so it's a third switch over, which is right back here. And there's two wires. Obviously, there's a wire going to it and a wire coming away from it. So what we need to do now is figure out which side is the powered side, because we want to pick up the wire on the side that gets power when the switch is turned on, so we can turn the cameras off, on and off. So I got to get my voltmeter, and we'll take a couple measurements here and see which is which, and then we'll tap into those, and we should be good to go. All right, we got most of the wiring run. I got some 14 gauge wire here that I put in. I found the switch side of the camera switch, so the cameras will turn off when we flip that switch, and I've got all those connected together. I ran those down the wall here. It comes out underneath the bathroom sink down there, so that's where it fishes through. And then we've got the wire coming out here. Then the wire is coming across from the basement there, run over here and into the tank where the propane is, and now they're hanging outside here. So we're going to go ahead and, gosh, I wish I would have kept those a little longer. We're going to go ahead and get those wired up, and I'll show you how we put those together. So this is the side marker light and camera that's going to get mounted right over this hole here. The way this is put together here is there's two wires coming out the back. There's this, well, there's a couple wires coming out here. There's this white and black wire. You can see those are going into the back of the light itself. And then there's the sticker wire here, and that's the camera wire. And then the last wire is this green wire, which is called a trigger wire. Now, if you wanted to hook this up to your directional signals, what you could do is when you turn your signal on, this could trigger the camera to signal the display in the cab to show this side. I'm not going to do that because I don't have a wire over here, and I'm not that concerned about the blind spot. I'm more concerned about being able to see down the side of the camper if we're pulling out of a gas station or something. I want to make sure that I'm not going to smash the end of my trailer against the pumps or something like that. So I'm going to go split these apart. We're going to wire these up to the marker. Obviously the marker light will go to the marker light here, and then the other wires will go to the camera, which I put together here, and we'll get all those put together, and then I'll show you the final piece there. All right, so we got all the wires hooked up here. I've got the marker lights going to the markers. I've got the wires for the camera going to the camera circuit that we created. We added wire up here. I'm gonna heat shrink these down then so that it seals the ends up nice, because it is a little exposed to the elements underneath there. I flipped the switch inside. I can see the little lights on in the camera, so if everything worked right, at this point we should have the rear camera and the side camera. Here we can see the rear camera is showing. See the ladder there, and here's the marker light that's pointing right down right now. So we can heat shrink those up, attach it to the camper, and go over, finish the last side, and we should be done. So one other little tip here that it took me a while to figure out is you got to get this lens off to screw this to the camper, and there's just a little slot here up on the side that pops that lens off. So that's just something to watch for. This whole piece doesn't come off, just this side piece, and just look for the little slot about halfway up on the end there, or part of the way up. So that's what takes that off. So we'll go ahead and mount this down, and we should be good to go. So we've had the Haloview cameras and you have used them driving for about 1,500 miles. Overall, we're liking them a lot. We just wanted to go through a few other review items here. I mentioned the installation manual. I found the installation manual to be almost worthless. It doesn't really tell you what the wires are for or those kinds of things. It shows you some basic pictures of what installing. But I found this rather worthless. So the other manual is the manual on the display. It goes over all the different menu options on the display. Talks about the different layouts that you can use for the camera and things like that. As we were preparing to make this final part of this video, I did read through the manual itself, and I did find some interesting things in there that made using it easier than what I had been doing. So this manual is very useful. A couple of things that I wanted to talk about here. The BT7, I think probably the big selling point on this is the 7-inch 1080p 2.4G display. I assume the cameras, all the cameras in the display and all that kind of stuff all support the 1080p. Now, if you're like me and you remember before televisions were 4K and they came out with 1080p televisions and the amazing screen quality even on the 1080p that you had on a large TV. So if you're using this as an outside camera and just, you know, using it as an observation camera, certainly the picture is quite nice. But what I can tell you, certainly when you're driving, the images, particularly multi-screen images, are quite pixelated. So when you're driving, you're not going to have that amazing quality. This is actually, I'm actually kind of surprised how good it is right now, because we haven't seen that kind of quality. So maybe if the lighting is just right and the lens is clean, which I did, that probably helps. So as we've been using this over the past few months, we've had the opportunity to drive with it a lot. This is the typical display that we use when we're driving. We have the screen out the back so we can see the traffic that's coming up behind us. And then we've got the two side cameras on the bottom here, and what you see is you see a vehicle come in from the top and then come through whichever camera this is going to be on. So we haven't used a camera system like this before, and honestly, after we first installed this, I really thought that it was kind of a wasted expense, because I'm pretty good at using the side mirrors and things like that, and thought, you know, I really don't need something like this. The side mirror, I can do just fine with the side mirrors. But what I've discovered using this is it's really nice to have. In particular, if you're in areas where there's very close quarters, like if you're in construction and it's a one lane and you're running down the side of a concrete barrier or something there, being able to quickly glance up at the dashboard and see that image and see that you've got that clearance between that barrier behind you is so much easier than trying to look to your, for example, your right-hand mirror, find the, the convex mirror that allows you to see down to the ground where the line is on the road. This is just so much faster and easier just to be able to get that quick look. So as far as using this driving, this has been kind of, in my view, kind of a game changer. It's really nice to have. So if you're looking at using this as a backup camera, I've been a little less excited about that. And we can just talk a little bit about the rear view camera and what you can see when you've got that on. So as far as the rear camera goes, there's little detents that allow you to set the camera up and down. So what I've done here is I've set this camera so
It's kind of in a down position. If you look closely, you can see our bikes that are on the back of the camper here. You can see a couple of orange blocks back here, leveling blocks. These blocks are basically 6 feet off the back of the camper. So with the camera pointed down, you can go down farther and see straight down the back. But this is 6 feet off the back of the camper. The other blocks here that are farther back up here in the kind of the top third of the screen here, those are 15 feet off the back of the camper. So you can see behind the rig probably about 20 feet is about all the distance you can see when the camera is pointed down. So maybe not too bad for backing up, but for driving you're not going to see very much. The other thing is these blocks, all of these blocks are straight off this edge of the camper. So as you can see, the backup lines don't completely correspond there. Closer to the insides of those lines is where that lines up. So I went and I clicked the camera up one more detent. You can see now that the 6-foot blocks have disappeared from the view, and you can see that the 15-foot blocks are out in the bottom half, and you can probably see, I would guess, 50 or so feet off the back of the camper now, so it's a little better. Maybe not quite as good for backing up. I think we're going to try this position for a while and see how we like this, but that's the view, kind of the middle view that you can get. So here I've gotten one more click up on the cameras. You can see the 15-foot blocks are very low down here, so everything behind there you can't see, but what you can see up above there is just about as far back behind you as, you know, whatever you could see. If we're on the highway, we can see a long ways behind us that way. So you kind of have to decide, you know, do you want to see, are you going to use this more for driving, where you want to see things coming up behind you, or do you want to use it for more for backup purposes, where maybe you want to point it down more but not see as much behind you when you're driving? So you kind of got to balance that out and see what works best for you. We have been using it in this position for a long time. I think we're going to drop it down to kind of that mid-level and give that a try and see how we like that. Probably better, maybe a better combination for driving and backing up. We'll give that a try and see how we like that.
How far would you say it is from the back of our rig to that walking path back there, just to give them an idea?
It's probably 100 to 200 feet, something in that range. So again, you know, if you were on flat highway in this position, you would basically be able to see pretty much as far as you could see until things just kind of disappeared on the top of the screen there. A couple other applications you might be wondering about on this. The display does have a spot in the top to put a micro SD card in there, which we've been using. You can set it up so it will continuously record and delete the oldest images, so you can use this like a dashboard camera of sorts. If you had some kind of an incident where someone ran into you or something like that, probably the recommended thing to do would be to pop this out so that you don't record over that, or particularly note the time that it happened. The SD card, what we found looking back at the files that we've got in the camera, recorded with all 3 cameras recording, we had about 18.5 hours of video or recordings. So you would be able to, you know, hold that for quite some time, you know, assuming you've got a bigger card, or if you put a bigger card in, you could get even more than that. The files that it records are an AVI file. So when we plugged this SD card into our computer, we didn't have anything on our computer that would play an AVI file. We had to download a free, basically a free application that would play those videos so that we can actually see those. You can go in on the menu in here, and it will show you where you can basically a listing of all the files. But the downside of that is none of those files have any dates associated with it. So as far as trying to go back and find something on the video display, it would be really difficult to do without being able to actually look at the files on a computer and see the date timestamps and things like that. So that's something to keep in mind as far as using the recordings on here. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about is basically, you know, if you wanted to use this as a security or kind of an observation type of a camera, again, we wired this up to a switch on our control panel, so I can turn these lights on anytime. I have a 12-volt plug-in, which allows me to plug the cigarette lighter into an outlet here. So I can basically look at this screen while we're in the camper. So if I'm looking at this as a, all three screens on the display here, you can see, these three areas. We don't have a camera on the hitch. If you wanted to have more observation, certainly you could put another one on there and put, four screens up here so that you could use that. One of the nice things of the cameras is they have lights on them. So if you want to see what's around your camper at night, certainly you can use it that way as well. But when you turn the lights on or the cameras on at night, the lights will come on. And I think we have a little piece on that as well. So I know this is going to be really hard to see, but this is one of the nice things about having these cameras wired up to the camera switch on our RV as opposed to being the running lights, is I can turn the lights on. They do have lights on them so you can see around your rig at night. So if you're using this for kind of a security purposes or whatever, or just kind of using it for some lighting around the rig as well, it's kind of nice to be able to turn those on and have lights on all sides of the rig. So here you can see the night view with the lights on the outside. This is all three screens here turned on, but I can flip through the different screens here. So you can see the side view here. The neighbor has their lights on, that's why it's so bright over on the right hand side. This is the other side. There's no lights on this side. As you can see, it's pretty bright over there with just the camera lights on. And then of course out the back, this isn't quite as clear. You can see a few bugs flying by. But if you were out someplace and you wanted to be able to see what's going on outside your rig at night, certainly this would do the trick to kind of see what's going on out there. So if you are using this with the lights on at night and then you want to go drive someplace, of course one of the things you don't want to do is have these lights shining into the adjacent lanes and behind you and things like that. So one morning when we did leave early and we were leaving before the sun was up and we realized we had to turn the camera lights off, it was quite cumbersome for us to go through and find it on here. Again, reading that manual, that display manual, what I discovered is if you just hold the S button, which is basically the button that goes between the screens, if you hold that down for a couple of seconds, that will just turn that light off for you. So it's actually quite easy to turn those lights on and off if you're going to use it that way. The other way that you can use the camera here is you can basically go through the different camera images that you have. The thing that I find slightly annoying about this is that there's this little black space in between the different views. It would be nice if it just went from one view to the next. It doesn't do that, however. And the last thing about trying to use this as kind of a security observation camera. Yes, it's great for a kind of an observation camera to see what's going on around your rig. But if you're looking really from a security perspective and want to know what's going on around your rig, this really isn't a good choice. Of course, there's no notifications of a person or movement or things like that. So the only way you would know that something happened is one, something's not right outside your rig, and you could go back and look through hours and hours of recordings on this. But as far as just seeing what's going on around outside your rig, it is quite useful for that. So just a couple of last little points about this. This has worked quite well for us. When we first installed this, probably within the first couple of days of travel, we lost all of the pairing to all of our cameras, and I had to go back and repair all of the cameras. The pairing process is very easy. That pairing problem where we lost all of the cameras happened twice, probably within the first week we had it. I was seriously considering either sending this unit back to get a replacement. But we haven't had that issue since then over several months of travel, so that's good. So the last little comment that I have about this is regarding the menu system. When you hit the menu button, they all pop up here. It would be super nice if this was a touch screen, but it's not. One of the issues that I kind of have with this is if you well, there it goes again. If you pop the menu up and you're trying to look at this and kind of trying to decide what you're going to do, or you're trying to look at the options for a particular setting, the screen only lasts about 8 seconds before it flips off. So if you're down in the park lane and you're trying to adjust that or different settings down here, and you get all the way down to that menu and you're looking at that trying to figure out what's going on, if you wait too long to touch a button, that screen is going to go clear. So it's a little bit of a inconvenience when you're trying to work with that, setting up menus and things like that, and setting up the different configurations that you want on there. So just one other piece of information to be aware of. Overall, we're pretty happy with the with the use of this, particularly, as I said, driving. We've really liked it. We think it's a great purchase. So that's our review of the Haloview. Again, we're really liking the camera system. Glad we bought it. And hopefully this is helpful to you as well.